Southern California, good afternoon, and welcome to another edition of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Today we have ourselves a jam-packed show as we have a lot to get into in the world of Southern California sports, such as the Lakers. Hey, they actually won a game as they beat the Golden State Warriors, who didn't have Steph Curry. But that's alright. I mean, it's a win, it's a start, it's progress. The Lakers are, I guess, moving up. I mean, I can't say the same for the Clippers, who are actually making extreme progress. They're moving up way more than the Lakers. They're not even in play-in range. They're top 4, which is quite impressive. And how about the Big West men's basketball race? It is really heating up. As UC Riverside, they're inching closer and closer to those UC Irvine men's basketball anteaters. And how about Long Beach State women's basketball? They continue to win. Though their last 2 games, they've gone down to the wire. It has been nail-biting. If you have been at those 2 games, you probably don't have any nails left. Also, El Trafico has been postponed, which makes me sad. Darn you, Mother Nature, I am so mad at you. But we have other SoCal sports to talk about. And we have NASCAR back here in Southern California as Nascar At Fontana is this weekend. All that and more here on the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. This is Teran Rodriguez bringing you another edition of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And welcome one, welcome all to another edition of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Thank you all for joining me on this beautiful Friday afternoon, Friday morning, Friday wherever you are listening from. Either way, you have made your way into episode 125 of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. And without any further delay, let us begin. But first and foremost, the SoCal Supreme Sports Show would not be where it's at without IE Sports Radio providing the platform to go live on. Follow IE Sports Radio on several different social media platforms such as Twitter, Instagram, and on TikTok at IE Sports Radio. We also have a Facebook account or a Facebook page at IE Sports Radio. You just got to type in the word IE, then sports, then radio in the search bar. Like us there, and then follow us there, and then poof, you're basically getting all your sports fix right there and then. We also have a website, www.iesportsradio.com, that's getting revamped, but it is almost pretty much there to being revamped. And when you go there, you will see a Patreon link at the top, and once you click it, donations will start off at $5 a month once you start donating. This will get you a shout from all of our shows, including this one, and higher tiers include IE Sports Radio merchandise, access to IESRU, the podcasting university of IE Sports Radio, and even a chance to be featured on a segment of our flagship show, The Defining Moment with Larry B. Because for the past 8 years and counting, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content, ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel, to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. All the while, we've been continuing to be by the fans and for the fans, and with your help, we are ready to take the next biggest step. Thank you to everyone for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports. And thank you for all of your support as well. We really do appreciate it. Shout out to our Patreon supporters, Bay Area Raised Apparel, Key to the Gate, Marcus Losgreat, and a donor that wishes to remain anonymous. And with all that said and done, let us begin. Alright, so we're going to begin with some NFL news, and I hope y'all can hear me. Well, I actually decided to turn myself down just because when I listen to myself a little bit back on the intro, I sounded a little loud, so hopefully you all can hear me better, so I digress though. So we'll start off with some NFL news. We're not going to dive too much deep onto some NFL news, so we'll start off with the Rams. So yesterday, I just got this news that Bobby Wagner, the Bobby Wagner that they signed from the Seattle Seahawks, he got released just because they decided to part ways, and this saves the Rams some salary cap space just because I want to say that the Rams were over the cap, which, the salary cap went up quite a bit, which is no good. So, unfortunately for the Rams, they had to part ways with Bobby Wagner, which is a bummer just because, Bobby Wagner was actually a good addition to the Rams, especially the defense. And I want to say he played in all of the Rams games this season. In a year that was injury-riddled for the Rams, Bobby Wagner was one of the bright spots for the Rams, and he even had an interception on his former teammate, Russell Wilson. We even got the infamous Patrick Star line from the Nickelodeon game, "That's not what he wanted to cook," which was awesome. But overall, the Rams signed Bobby Wagner to a lot of money in a lot of years, so it kind of does make sense at a glance to let go of Bobby Wagner. So, yeah, it was rough saying farewell to Bobby Wagner. We'll miss you, Bobby Wagner. Hopefully he does kill it with another team. I just hope that team isn't within the division. So, I wish you the best, Bobby Wagner. And hopefully you're not crushing it against the Rams. Otherwise, the Rams are going to regret letting it go. So that's that for pretty much the Rams. Again, I'm not going to dive too much into Rams or Chargers. The Chargers also made some transactions as well. I guess the Chargers parted with Ronaldo Hill, their defensive coordinator, and I guess they also parted with their athletic trainer or their medical trainer or something like that. I know they parted ways with their defensive coordinator, Ronaldo Hill. Now, he went over to the Miami Dolphins with Vic Fangio just because he and Vic Fangio were how do I put this? They coached with one another back when Fangio was with the Broncos back in Fangio's coaching days with Denver. So it kind of makes sense for this, and honestly, it's like, it is what it is. Like, considering how the Chargers defense never really got off the ground all that much, it's like, I guess we won't miss him too much. I mean, there was a point where the Chargers defense did have that 1 week where they looked really good, but that was against not so good teams. They did have that 1 week where they shut down the Dolphins, but it was like, that was the week after they didn't play the greatest against the Niners. So, I wish Ronaldo Hill the best, but it's like, and I totally understand him wanting to go back to coach with Vic Fangio as the co-defensive coordinator, but it's like, it is what it is. Chargers are just going to have to be on the market for another defensive coordinator. And I guess on the topic of former Chargers anything, their former offensive coordinator Joe Lombardi, got hired by the Denver Broncos as the offensive coordinator, which I kind of find interesting. Now, it kind of makes sense just because Lombardi was the offensive coordinator for Sean Payton back when Sean Payton was at New Orleans with the Saints when Drew Brees was the quarterback. But, I don't know. Drew Brees isn't the quarterback anymore. Russell Wilson is. But I guess it's going to be a work in progress. The only slap in the face for the Chargers would be that if Lombardi shines more with Russell Wilson and Sean Payton, and that the problem would be the Chargers. But all in all, it's like, I guess I wish Joe Lombardi the best. I'm just looking forward to what the Chargers can do, but that's just that bit of news for the Chargers. I'll see what the Chargers have to offer once they hire their defensive coordinator. I don't know who they're going to hire as defensive coordinator. I haven't looked too much into that, but I digress on that. Alright, so that's going to do it for the NFL portion of that show. Yes, we're not going to get too much into NFL just because it's the off-season. I guess NFL free agency doesn't begin until March 15th, which is a Wednesday. So there's that. All right, jumping on into some NCAA college basketball, just because that's kind of the hot spot for Southern California. So for USC and for UCLA, well, UCLA is basically inching closer and closer to winning that Pac-12 regular season championship, as UCLA is still number 4 in the coaches poll, or they're number 4 in the nation, as yesterday they beat Utah 78-71 on the road. Utah is slightly underrated, if you ask me. They're 5th in the Pac-12, which is not bad. If you're top 5 in the Pac-12, you're not doing too bad. Last week for UCLA, last Saturday they beat Cal 78-43. They stomped all over Cal, and then last Thursday, I already mentioned this, but they trounced Stanford 73-64. This Sunday, UCLA will remain in the Rocky Mountains as they take on Colorado. They should be able to take down Colorado with ease, with the greatest of ease. Because if they win that one, and then if they win and then USC loses, then UCLA wins the Pac-12 regular season championship. If UCLA and USC win, then UCLA gets a share of the Pac-12 regular season championship. Either way, after Sunday, UCLA has 2 more matches or 2 more games left, and that would be against the Arizona schools, Arizona State and Arizona. Sorry about that. Had a little bit of a hiccup there, but UCLA men's hoops is looking really good. And my biggest question is, how much damage can UCLA men's hoops can do in the NCAA tournament? That's my biggest thing. I feel they can do some good damage. Some have them projected as a 2 seed in whatchamacallit, a number in a certain bracket. I'm not the best bracketologist, but I feel that UCLA might be deserving of a 1 seed, but we'll see. Time will tell. But if they are a number 2 seed in a certain region, then they're going to be the most dangerous 2 seed out there. Like, I think UCLA is really starting to come into its own. My only concern is I hope they're not peaking at the wrong time, just because you never know what could happen with certain teams. And, honestly, the NCAA tournament is a whole different animal, as the whole NCAA tournament is basically win or go home, whereas the Pac-12 tournament is you basically lose and you're most likely still going to get into the NCAA tournament, but your seed might be a little bit different. So for UCLA, they're still looking really good, and I'm really excited to see what they can do. Now for USC, they basically thumped Colorado 84-65 yesterday. Remember when USC used to struggle with beating Colorado? Oh, those were the good old days with Andy Enfield. Now they're just beating Colorado like it's nobody's business. Thank goodness. I used to hate seeing Colorado in men's basketball whenever USC played them. It was just stressful. I think every USC fan hated that. And I remember all the days where I think every USC fan can attest to this. Whenever Colorado played USC in men's hoops, we would always just dread seeing the Buffs. But nowadays, it's now USC beating Colorado, which is great, and I hope we can continue to see that more. I hope we can continue to see USC beating Colorado more often than not. So USC takes on Utah tomorrow on ESPNU. It's going to be at Utah, and just like UCLA, they have 2 more matches or 2 more games after tomorrow, which is next week. They play the Arizona schools at the Galen Center, being Arizona and Arizona State. Unlike UCLA, USC is 3 games behind UCLA. I do not think USC is going to catch UCLA in the Pac-12 standings. However, I think USC is still a threat to any team in the NCAA tournament. I still think USC can get into the NCAA tournament, and I don't think USC is going to fall anywhere past 3 in the Pac-12 tournament. I think USC has the 3 seed locked up. Now, here's my thing. Who does USC want to see more in the Pac-12 tournament? Do they want to see Arizona in the Pac-12 tournament? Or do they want to see Arizona? Arizona is the hot shot, flashy, hot shooting team, while USC has basically played them. Well, they played them close the first time, and they just fell behind the first time, and basically they couldn't rally to beat them. But then the second time, they fell behind the first half, and then rallied to beat them in the second half. But that was at Galen Center. So the second go this time when USC plays in the Pac-12 tournament, there's not going to be the Galen Center. It's going to be in Las Vegas. So for USC, my question is, can USC actually have success outside of the Galen Center? Can they actually win at a neutral site, let alone can they have success outside of the Galen Center? That's gonna be to be determined. That's gonna be a time will tell thing. But we'll see what happens with the USC. I think USC is looking a little bit better. I mean, granted, they've beaten Colorado, which has not been good. I mean, they're barely treading water above 500. Colorado has definitely seen better days. Stanford has definitely seen better days. Cal certainly has seen better days. I mean, they blew them out by 40. And remember, they still have that loss to Oregon State, and they got trounced by Oregon. And then they also still have the loss to Washington State. So we all have to wonder, where is USC going to fall in the criteria of where are they going to be seated, and where are they going to be seated in terms of the regions? Like, you still have to wonder where they're going to be at. Like, where is USC going to be seated in terms of the regions, and where are they deemed worthy of it, considering their body of work? They have that win over Auburn. They have a few close losses here and there to Tennessee and Wisconsin. And, you know, how good is the Pac-12 overall? I mean, looking at the standings, USC is good. They are third, but you look at the entirety of the Pac-12, it's like looking at the Pac-12 as a whole, there's only 4 teams that are 10 plus games above 500. Utah all the way down to Cal is basically 5 games. Well, Utah, and then Utah, Oregon, Washington, and Colorado are basically 5 or less games above 500, and then everyone else is below 500. So that's basically quite the... it's also something to take into consideration. Is the Pac-12 lost its luster? And is the Pac-12 not as strong as it has been in the past? So we'll see what happens with the Pac-12 this season, and it's still basically a numbers game. And again, I'm not the biggest bracketologist out there. I don't know what to expect with the March Madness, so I'm not your guy to basically go with bracketology, so just saying. Alright, that's that with USC and UCLA. Jumping over to the Big West, oh boy, we've got a lot of craziness in the Big West men's basketball standings. So last night, UC Irvine lost to UC San Diego 99-91. UC Santa Barbara eked out a win over Long Beach State 78-73, and then UC Riverside squeaked out a win after being down as much as 11 to Hawaii on the road 54-52. So looking at those standings in the Big West Conference men's basketball standings, UC Irvine is still in first place, but don't count out UC Riverside. They are a half a game behind those Anteaters, as they have the rest of the week off, while Santa Barbara is right behind those they're one game behind the Anteaters. Fullerton and Hawaii are both still in the hunt, but they need a lot to go their way. And Hawaii is looking rather interesting. I didn't even know Hawaii had 20 wins. Riverside also got their 20th win yesterday, and also Irvine has 20 wins on the season too, so that's quite interesting. But Fullerton also kind of has an outside chance of winning the conference, but again, they need a lot to go their way. They need a lot to go their way, and honestly, it's a crapshoot for them to get to win the conference regular season championship. Like, Irvine's going to have to lose to Hawaii, which they play this Saturday, and then they'd have to lose out the rest of the way. But we'll see what happens. But for Irvine, that loss to UC San Diego was kind of costly. I didn't think they would lose at the Bren, as Roddy Anderson led the way for UC San Diego with 25 points. I've seen him play, and he's pretty solid. Dawson Baker led Irvine with 33 points, which, okay, I would think with 33 points, Irvine would win that game. Pierre Cockrell chipped in 6 rebounds and 11 assists for the Anteaters. Anderson had 4 assists as well to go along with his 25 points for UC San Diego. As overall for the Anteaters, they still control their destiny, but now their margin of error is very slim. Going to Hawaii is going to be so difficult for those Anteaters, as they play at 7 p.m. Pacific time, which is 10 p.m. Hawaii time. Oh, actually, no, 7 p.m. Hawaii time. That's 7 p.m. Pacific time. That's 4 p.m. Hawaii time. I gotta get that right. I don't know if Hawaii hasn't even had their daylight savings. I'm pretty sure that's 4 p.m. Hawaii time. Hawaii, you gotta get your stuff together in terms of daylight savings. I don't know. I haven't been to Hawaii ever since I was 10. But overall, UC Irvine plays at Hawaii. It's gonna be so tough to win just because Hawaii still has that chance to win the Big West. And UC Riverside is going to be licking their chops to see what happens. They're probably going to have their eyeballs glued to that TV, and I'm looking forward to seeing that. Oh my god, this game is going to be played on ESPN2. What do I have going on Saturday? I might, believe it or not, I might actually see this matchup. Oh baby, I might actually see this matchup. I mean, I might go to a men's volleyball match between Concordia, Irvine, and BYU, but I don't know. Maybe I'll see this matchup, but we'll see what happens. So, looking at for UC Santa Barbara, they head down to San Diego to take on UC San Diego or La Jolla. That should be quite the interesting matchup for the Gauchos, just because they're still in the hunt, but they need a lot to go their way. Their last 2 matchups are at UC Davis, and then they host Hawaii. And then for UC Irvine, like I mentioned, they also head down to UC Riverside to take on the Highlanders, because that's the biggest game of the season for both the Highlanders and for the Anteaters. Or, that's the biggest game of the regular season for both the Highlanders and the Anteaters. And then Irvine closes out the season at home against Bakersfield. Meanwhile, Riverside closes out the regular season on the road against Cal Poly, which, lowly Cal Poly, but you can never underestimate those Cal Poly Mustangs. But overall, that's pretty much that for the Big West Conference. Now, for Cal State Fullerton, their matchup against UC Davis was canceled. I don't know why that was canceled. I don't know if it was because it was a whatchamacallit thing, a Cal State, a Fullerton thing, or it was a, thing, it was a UC Davis thing, but either way, it is canceled, and it's not going to get made up. But unfortunately, it is not going to be made up, as sadly that is the case, and I am officially sad face. So here it is. So from UC Davis, it says, our up-and-coming game at Cal State Fullerton has been canceled due to limited student-athlete availability. The game will be not rescheduled and will be declared a no contest per Big West policy. So, yeah, so here's the press release. So it looks like it's a UC Davis thing. So, yeah, it says this comes from the Director of Athletics, Rocco DeLuca, from UC Davis. We are disappointed that we cannot compete in this critical late season contest. However, after consulting with our medical professionals, it is clear, while difficult, this is the best decision for our student athletes' health and well-being. I like how that well-being is one whole word. Well, that sucks. Well, yeah, and someone said that it should be a forfeit. I mean, to an extent, I agree. And while that does suck for Fullerton, I mean, it can't be helped. It's not all Davis's fault. I mean, things happen. So, I feel bad for Fullerton mostly. And I guess I'll get into that a little bit later, but unfortunately for Fullerton, it is what it is. They only have 2 games remaining, as they now have the matchup against Bakersfield on Saturday, and then they have their matchup against UC San Diego. So, unfortunately for Fullerton, that is that. As Larry B says, my boy Teran, and yeah, I'm talking Cal State Fullerton Titans. And I was talking a little UC Davis men's basketball just because UC Davis had to cancel their matchup against Cal State Fullerton because, unfortunately, UC Davis does not have enough players to suit up. And it sucks because Cal State Fullerton is in the thick of the Big West title hunt, but they just don't. This is probably going to hurt their chances of winning the Big West regular season championship. So, what was looking like Cal State Fullerton might have a chance. They probably are not going to win. The only way they win it is if Cal State Fullerton wins out and then UC Riverside pretty much, or UC Irvine loses out and then UC Riverside loses out. And actually, I don't even think that happens because Riverside and Irvine play one another and then they can't lose out. So, yeah, Fullerton cannot win the Big West Conference. So, doggone it, UC Davis. I'm not going to try to pick on UC Davis. I understand there are circumstances, but it's like, I feel bad for Cal State Fullerton. Like, Fullerton was just in the tournament last season, and at least they have the tournament this year. And yeah, UC Davis was just in the tournament a few years ago. Yeah, they were. And I feel the Big West Conference is kind of like a timeshare when it comes to like the tournament. When it comes to like the NCAA tournament. Like one year we'll see like UC Santa Barbara, then we'll see Irvine, then we'll see who else? Davis, like Larry mentioned. Then maybe we'll see Hawaii, and then we'll see Irvine again. So it's like a timeshare. So, and I've been surprised with the Highlanders this season. They've surpassed 20 wins yet again. And believe it or not, they are so close to winning that Big West Conference regular season championship. They are obviously rooting for Hawaii, but if Hawaii does manage to beat UC Irvine, Hawaii would only be 1 game back of the Anteaters, and that could put UC Santa Barbara in prime position to possibly overtake UC Irvine as well. So this Big West Conference men's basketball race is slowly heating up. So that's that for Big West Conference men's basketball. Jumping over to the West Coast Conference, where poor little Pepperdine, just when we all thought Pepperdine was starting to turn the corner, they start to fall a little flat. As yesterday they lost to Santa Clara 91-82, but I will say this, they gave Gonzaga all that they could handle, as they only lost 97-88, which, with how forgettable this has been of a season for Pepperdine, that's kind of incredible that they only lost by 10 or less than 10 to Gonzaga. So good on you, Pepperdine. Tip of the cap to you. I can't say the same for San Diego, as they got demolished by Gonzaga last night, 97-72 on national TV. Like I was actually seeing that game when I was ordering takeout food, and I saw they were up 4-0. I'm like, yes, San Diego was actually winning. Stop the count. And then Gonzaga decided to actually play basketball, and I was like, oh, that's it. So, yeah, the last two games have been pretty much brutal for San Diego, as they had to play their past two opponents are ranked. So, there's no shame in losing to those two opponents, San Diego. So don't worry, we still love you. It's just that men's basketball, unfortunately, sadly ain't your thing. But it's okay, though. The Toreros close out the season against Santa Clara at home this Saturday. And then as for LMU, which is probably the best Southern California team from the West Coast Conference, the Lions eked out a win over Pacific 90-88 as they close out the season against their PCH Cup rival Pepperdine. It looks like LMU is going to be finishing fourth in the West Coast Conference, which I guess isn't terrible. I mean, it looks like they're going to be finishing ahead of San Francisco just because, okay, well, San Francisco won last night against Portland, which I guess that's not too terrible. I mean, at a glance, I could see LMU beating Pepperdine, but you can never count out Pepperdine in the PCH Cup. On paper, yeah, Larry, Pepperdine is 2-13 in West Coast Conference play. It's been that type of season for the Waves. Meanwhile, LMU, they're 8-7, but that 8-7, two of those wins were against Gonzaga and St. Mary's. So for LMU, here's my thing. Would you rather play Gonzaga in the West Coast Conference tournament, or would you rather play St. Mary's? It's basically pick your poison. And my thing is, St. Mary's and Gonzaga play one another this weekend, and whoever wins, I imagine, gets the 1 seed. I know St. Mary's beat Gonzaga early in the season. I don't know how tiebreakers work when it comes to which team gets the 1 seed or which team gets the higher seed when it comes to like the West Coast Conference tournament, but all I know is that LMU is going to probably get the 4 seed. Now, do they want to get Gonzaga, a team that pretty much just steamrolled them last week, or do they want to get St. Mary's? I think St. Mary's is kind of the lesser of the two evils, but it's like they're going to have to play either or sometime down the road, whether they play them in the championship game of the West Coast Conference tournament or they just play them in the semifinals. Either way, LMU can't duck either opponent. Unless, of course, either opponent just forfeits. Or for some odd reason they can't play in the tournament, and then LMU just moves up in terms of seeding. But that would just be unfortunate. You can't just duck opponents. You just can't. Anyway, that's pretty much that for LMU. At least I'll give LMU this. Finishing top 4 is not bad. I mean, it would have been awesome to see LMU finish higher than Santa Clara, but that would also mean possibly playing Gonzaga in the semifinals of the West Coast Conference tournament, which might not be everyone's cup of tea, but LMU's still having a great season. They're 18-11, probably going to be 19-11. I can't see them win. I could definitely see the Lions winning a West Coast Conference tournament game. So they should get 20 wins. Hopefully, they can get into the NCAA tournament. I don't know how many games. I mean, I don't know if they have any other standout wins that could get LMU into the tournament. I know Gonzaga is a definite special win just because they beat Gonzaga on the road. And then St. Mary's was definitely a special win. But it's like, how far does that take them in terms of the committee letting them into the tournament? We'll see what happens with LMU, though. Just because the West Coast Conference is not a Power 5 conference. If the West Coast Conference was Power 5, then we'd see maybe LMU possibly making a push to get into that NCAA tournament. But it still remains to be seen. But time will tell. Again, I'm not a bracketologist. I don't know the ins and outs of the criteria of who gets in, but we'll see. Time will tell. Jumping on over to the Mountain West Conference, San Diego State steamrolled Colorado State 77-58, which made me happy. So taking a look at those standings, San Diego State is still one game ahead of Boise State, as now they have kind of entered the point of no return. This is the biggest week for San Diego State. They head on down to New Mexico to take on New Mexico, and then Tuesday they head on down to Boise to take on Boise State. And then they close out the season at home against Wyoming, which most anticlimactic final game of the regular season ever. But jokes aside, that Boise State game is crucial. They gotta win that one. But to get to that game, they gotta take on University of New Mexico. Now, if we all remember correctly, University of New Mexico was the final team to remain undefeated before losing that first game of the season. That is the biggest trap game of the. That's going to be the biggest trap game for San Diego State before heading on into Boise State. Honestly, if San Diego State thinks they're going to get an easy matchup against New Mexico, they are sadly mistaken. As long as San Diego State doesn't botch this, they're in good shape. They got their first matchup out of the way against Colorado State, which was no surprise they'd win. But now they have to go on the road to take on New Mexico and Boise State. That is going to be so crucial. Like, it's so easy to win at home, but winning on the road is so tricky. Like, you got to win on the road. Like, you have to go into your opponent's house and you basically have to show them up. Just because Boise State wants it, and then obviously, New Mexico obviously wants to play spoiler, but Boise State still wants it. We'll see what happens, though. And Larry, before we head on into the WAC, Larry B said earlier in the comments, let's not talk about the Lancers in the WAC. Okay, well, to honor Larry B's wish, we will not go over Larry B's CBU Lancers in the Western Athletic Conference. So we'll skip over the men's basketball team of CBU, and we'll jump over to some NCAA women's basketball discussion. So let us go on into some women's basketball talk. So we'll skip our boy Larry B and the CBU Lancers. So before we go on into some NCAA women's basketball talk, let's talk a little WNBA action. So I haven't really discussed a whole lot about the WNBA, but I did hear that the Ogwumike girls, Chine and NECA, they will be back with the Sparks, the sisters. They will be back. So that's really good news to hear. I'm happy that the Ogwumike girls are back with the Sparks. I like those sisters. I really like seeing them back on the Sparks. And I also hear that Carly Samuelson, the older sister of Katie Lou Samuelson, who also played at Mater Dei, will be signing with the Sparks as well. That is a rumor, but if she signs with the Sparks, I will be happy. We'll have two sets of sisters on the Sparks. Make it happen, Sparks. And if they haven't kept Katie Lou Samuelson in as a Spark, do so. Anyway, now we move on into some NCAA women's basketball action. So, jumping back over to the the Pac-12 action, the Pac-12 side of things. So, remember how USC was ranked last week? Well, all good things sadly came to an end when it came to USC women's hoops being ranked. Well, you want to know why? Because USC lost to the unranked Cal in overtime last Sunday, 81-78 in overtime. And I'm like, gosh dang it, USC. It's like, of course, the 1 week that USC women's hoops is ranked, they lose to an unranked opponent. You want to know what's worse? USC lost by only 3 points to number 3 Stanford on the road. It's like, why you gotta do this to me, Lady Trojans? Why you gotta make me sad? Oh man, it's like, why you gotta break my heart, Lady Trojans, or Women of Troy? I'm sorry, Women of Troy. Like, apparently I called the women's basketball team of CBU, the Lady Lancers, and I got called out for it, like, because it sounded like it was in medieval times. It's like, who cares, dude? It's like, do you, dude? I'll do me. Okay, but why you gotta break my heart, Women of Troy? Why you gotta do this to me? But, I'll give USC this. The fact that they only lost by 3 to Stanford on the road is actually pretty good. I'll give them this. They made Cameron Brink look like Dikembe Mutombo out there, because now she is now the Stanford career blocks leader. So, man, that's heartbreaking. What's even worse is that they made Cal last week look like freaking the Las Vegas Aces. So, yeah, that's a bummer for the Sparks. The good news is that yesterday they beat Washington 47-43. So good for the Women of Troy as they close out the regular season against Washington State at home. So good for them. They unfortunately will not be winning the Pac-12 anytime soon. They also could have played spoiler to Stanford's chances of winning the Pac-12, but unfortunately they didn't. But the good news is that they did surpass 20 wins with that win over Washington. Like, the fact that USC has had not the best seasons in the past speaks to high volumes of how they've really turned it around. And they're going to get even better once they get Juju Watkins coming to their program next season. For those that don't know who Juju Watkins is, she is the #1 recruit in the nation. She is playing for a CIF Southern Section Championship with Sierra Canyon this weekend. And I want to say they're going to be playing at the Honda Center, as I think Sierra Canyon is playing. I actually don't know who they're playing because I haven't been following that. Oh, now I remember. They're playing Etiwanda. I'm sorry. Sierra Canyon's playing Etiwanda, as Sierra Canyon beat Sage Hill, and then Etiwanda beat Mater Dei. So they're playing at Honda Center, and yeah. For you USC women's basketball buffs out there. But back to USC women's hoops. USC closed out the regular season against Washington State on Saturday. So there's that. Now as for UCLA, who is now number 17 in the nation, who continues to still be ranked, which good for them. They also played Stanford on Monday, which I found really strange that they played on President's Day, but I digress. They played Stanford tough, and unlike USC, they actually were behind most of the way. But, well, actually, no, they were ahead most of the way. But then Stanford actually made a little bit of a fourth quarter push, and then they wound up winning, or UCLA wound up losing 71-66, which made me sad. The good news is for UCLA is that they weren't going to win the Pac-12 anyway, just because, well, unfortunately, they were out of contention pretty much a couple weeks back. The good news is for UCLA, they didn't lose to Cal as they won 67-54 a few nights before. And then oh my god, never mind. I was going to say the really bad news is that yesterday they lost to Washington State 62-55, so just when we all thought UCLA was taking 2 steps forward, they take 10 steps back. Gosh dang it, UCLA. I thought you were supposed to be the bright spot of Southern California college women's hoops, not the dark spot. Anyway, UCLA closes out their regular season against Washington. So, looking at the Pac-12 standings, it looks like UCLA and USC are pretty much caboosed with one another at 10-7, and they will be pretty much the 5 and 6 seed in the Pac-12 tournament, which is a good thing for which is kind of a good thing for USC. USC will be the 6th seed, and they'll most likely avoid Stanford until the championship match. I'm fairly certain USC should get into the tournament. They did beat Stanford. They also beat Colorado, and they've played a majority of their opponents tough. Now, how good they do in the tournament depends on how where they'll be seated, and if they'll fully get into that NCAA tournament. Just because the Pac-12 has been so darn good this season. Can the NCAA tournament take a majority of the Pac-12? Because the way I see it, I think the NCAA tournament takes Stanford, Utah, Colorado, Arizona, UCLA, and USC. I don't know if they take Washington State. Maybe they take Washington State after that win over UCLA, especially on the road. But I'm no bracketologist. I don't really know the criteria of these wins, but I digress. And I don't even know what they're going to do with Oregon, who just beat Arizona yesterday. Like, God, with how banged up Oregon was, I don't know what they're going to do with them. Like, we'll see what happens, though. Anyway, that's going to do it for the Pac-12 portion of the NCAA women's basketball side of things. Jumping on over to the Big West Conference side of things on the NCAA women's basketball side of things. Oh boy, Long Beach State had themselves quite the craziest win yesterday. So they were down 18 at halftime, and I didn't go to this game. I was thinking about going to this game, but I was thinking, knowing my luck, they're probably going to lose, and I'm going to officially be banned by their coach. But thankfully, I didn't go because they actually wound up beating UC Santa Barbara 66-63, as they've now won 13 in a row, which is quite astounding. And they still are in first place in the Big West Conference standings. So, and that's not where the craziness stops. Their previous match, they beat Hawaii at Hawaii 48-47, as they had one of their players sink 2 late free throws to give them the game. They were down 1 point, and then one of their players got fouled late in the game. She sank 2 free throws, and then that was pretty much the game, and that's how Long Beach State kept their winning streak alive and kept themselves atop the Big West Conference standings. And I might as well just give this award right now. I'll give Long Beach State the Big W award, just because their program actually did surpass 1,000 wins, which is incredible right there. I have been meaning to give that award out to them. They actually surpassed this when they beat UC Riverside on Wednesday, February 15th. I've been meaning to do that, but I haven't, just because I have been a forgetful Freddy. But I will also give their coach a shout-out, Jeffrey Kamen. He has been outstanding. He is actually the second African-American coach in the Long Beach State women's basketball history, which I think is incredible. And I think he might be the second head coach in Long Beach State athletics history, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not entirely certain, but let me just confirm that just to be safe. But I do have lots of respect for Jeffrey Kamen. He is a down-to-earth guy, and he is really solid. I think he is just a great guy overall, he's the second black coach in program history. So, he's the second black coach black coach in African American, and he's following the former head coach and his mentor Glenn McDonald, which I think is awesome right there. So, I think it's great that Jeffrey Kamen has done such an outstanding job, and I've followed this team quite a bit ever since I was at Long Beach State, and this team has had a lot of heartbreaking losses in the past, mainly in the Big West Conference Tournament. They've had losses and losses and losses where they've either lost on the final shot from the opponent, but now they've basically found ways to win pretty much on the last play. And the fact that they came back from 18 points down to beat UC Santa Barbara, because UC Santa Barbara is amongst some of the top teams in the Big West Conference, is quite incredible. So for Long Beach State, that's incredible to do so. And if it would have been even more incredible if this was on the road, but they already did that already. So for Long Beach State to defend their home court is incredible to do so. So Long Beach State has 3 games remaining as they play Northridge on Saturday. They play at Northridge on Saturday, and then they play at Bakersfield next Thursday, and then they close out the regular season at home against Davis. So they are still one game ahead of Irvine. Now, for Irvine, they're in a very sticky situation, as last week they unfortunately had 2 of their games canceled just because they did not have enough numbers. So, if we all remember their game against UC Santa Barbara, where they won in dramatic fashion after they were down 5 with about 32 seconds remaining, they forced overtime and won. Their matchups against UC Davis and Cal Poly got canceled because they did not have enough players to play. So, without any players to play, they were unable to play, and without any games to play, they basically were unable to keep pace with Long Beach State, which is why Long Beach State is now one game ahead of UC Irvine, as opposed to UC Irvine still keeping pace with Long Beach State. So that really does suck for the Anteaters. So it's basically like the same situation that Cal State Fullerton is in. Since UC Davis can't play any games, they basically are. Since Davis can't play against since Davis can't play against Cal State Fullerton can't play, and unfortunately, they're unable to basically better their record. So it really does suck, but it is what it is. So for UC Irvine, the only way they can basically surpass Long Beach State is they gotta win out. They have that opportunity as Saturday they host Hawaii, and then their last 2 games in March are against UC Riverside, and then they head down to Bakersfield to take on Cal State Bakersfield to close out the regular season. So for Irvine, all they could really do is basically just see how the final games play out and hope that they don't have any more games canceled. If they get another game canceled, they're all but screwed. And that's not trying to be funny here, because they can't afford another game canceled, because if they see another game canceled and Long Beach State wins, Long Beach pretty much wins the regular season conference title, and they get that number 1 seed. And Long Beach State is looking really good. They continue to look good. Now, I'm not trying to put Long Beach State on a pedestal, or I'm not trying to jinx them overly that much, but Long Beach State, they're continuing to win and win and win. Now, the last 2 games have been so dramatic for the Beach, but I will say this. They're finding ways to win, and the fact that they just dug their way out of an 18-point halftime deficit speaks to high volumes of how they've changed their culture and how I wouldn't say changed their culture, but they've just turned it around as opposed to years past. It's just incredible. So we'll see what happens with Long Beach in the Big West Conference going forward, but it's just the Big West Conference is basically just down to just Long Beach State and UC Irvine. Like, there's no way any other team could basically catch up to either of those teams. It just does. It's not going to happen. Like, even if Long Beach State and Irvine lose out, there's just no other way that any other team catches up to them. The only other team that is rather close to Long Beach State or Irvine is Santa Barbara and Hawaii, and they're not even remotely close to catching up to them. Now, I could see Santa Barbara or Hawaii possibly. Santa Barbara could possibly pose a threat to Long Beach State in the Big West Conference tournament, just because Santa Barbara has played Long Beach State the closest in the 2 matches. Hawaii, as I said last week, it's so tough to play at Hawaii. Now, Hawaii obviously got thumped the first match against Long Beach State, but then the second go around, Hawaii narrowly lost to Long Beach State. How would Hawaii do on a neutral site against Long Beach State? Would Hawaii do good against Hawaii? Or would Hawaii do good against Long Beach State the second go around? That still remains to be seen. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I wouldn't count out UC Davis. UC Davis isn't really having their best season, but they're still solid. like, every so often, UC Davis is really good. Like, they're more often than not one of the better teams in the Big West, but we'll see. So that's pretty much that for the Big West Conference right there. Jumping over to the West Coast Conference, for San Diego, Pepperdine, and LMU. For San Diego, let's just say it's been better days for the Toreros. Yesterday, they lost to Gonzaga 73-61, but last Saturday, they beat Santa Clara 69-62 in overtime. The way it's looking like it's looking like San Diego is gonna finish third in the West Coast Conference, maybe, as BYU postponed their game against Portland? Question mark? As I imagine that game is going to be played on Monday. So BYU is eventually going to play Portland. So eventually BYU is going to find a way. I imagine Portland's going to win that one, just because Portland is so darn good. Anyway, San Diego plays Portland on Saturday, which it's going to be a tough one for those Lady Toreros. So I imagine, what's their face? 2 carry the 3 minus 4. I imagine BYU loses both times to Gonzaga and Portland, so that puts them at 9-9. San Diego loses to Portland. So, yeah, San Diego finishes third in the West Coast Conference, which I think is pretty solid. I'm pretty sure San Diego finishing third in the West Coast Conference is not bad. I mean, that's pretty solid considering Gonzaga and Portland rule the conference with an iron fist. As for Pepperdine and LMU got clobbered by Santa Clara yesterday, 80-51. But they did beat Pepperdine 76-71. Sorry, Pepperdine fans. I know you don't want to hear that, but it is the truth. LMU closes out the season, or regular season, against San Francisco. And then as for Pepperdine, they beat San Francisco yesterday, 73-51, as they close out the regular season against Santa Clara tomorrow. So there's that for your West Coast Conference talk. And then closing out the closing out the NCAA women's basketball discussion with the Mountain West Conference and our good friends from San Diego State, if I can find them. All I can tell you is that UNLV is probably going to win that conference, and those lady Rebels are doing really good, and I see with jealousy whenever I see them. San Diego State sadly lost to Wyoming 70-58, as tomorrow San Diego State, like I said, they play UNLV, which is not going to go well for them. The Lady Aztecs close out the regular season against Air Force, which they should be able to win that one, as Wyoming now has surpassed them in the Mountain West Conference standings in women's basketball, which makes me sad, but it is what it is. We'll see what happens with San Diego State in the Mountain West Conference tournament, but right now, it's looking like UNLV is going to probably win the Mountain West Conference tournament in women's basketball, because they are ruling that conference with an iron fist and then some. My good golly gracious. She-Ute. Alright, so that's... Oh, no. I forgot. We still have CBU to talk about in terms of women's basketball. Larry said to not discuss CBU men's basketball, but he never said women's basketball. Yeah. So the Lady Lancers, yes, I'm going to still call them that, they beat New Mexico State 73-65, as this Saturday they take on Utah Tech, and then this upcoming Tuesday they close out the regular season against Southern Utah, as CBU is second in the WAC, as they technically still have a chance to clinch a share of the Western Athletic Conference regular season title. But it's like, they need Stephen F. Austin to lose out. They need Southern Utah to lose out. And then GCU has to pretty much lose one. And then they'd have a three-way tie for first place with Stephen F. Austin and Southern Utah. But that's all. What truly matters is the WAC tournament. So if CBU could win the WAC tournament, that would be super duper fan-diddly-tastic. But I'm not going to hold my breath on that. So that's pretty much that for CBU women's basketball, and that's pretty much that for NCAA women's basketball. We're gonna jump on into a commercial break to give my voice a little bit of a rest. When we come back, we will be discussing some NBA, some NASCAR, as NASCAR at Fontana is this week. Hopefully we don't get any more rain this weekend. And then we've got some NHL to discuss. Then we've got the Dum Dum of the Week. Keep it locked here. You are listening to the SoCal Supreme Sports Show here on IU Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. We'll be right back after this.
Hey sports fans, do you like wine? Well, we've got the show for you. This is Let's Wine About Sports, a show where we talk about wine and sports simultaneously. From the classic Cabernet Sauvignon all the way down to the grapes that you've never even heard of before. Oh yeah, we cover it all. And we'll talk about a little bit of sports as well. Football, hockey, collegiate, women's sports, it doesn't matter. We're going to talk about it all, and we're going to whine about it all. So join me Monday at 8 p.m. on IU Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Some say that Indiana is just a flyover state. Flatlands and cornfields, barns and country roads. What if I told you Indiana is the crossroads of America? What if I told you in all other states, basketball is just basketball? In Indiana, basketball is life. Crowded high school basketball gyms on a Friday night, and every barn with a basketball rim and a frayed, worn-out net. If you're interested in the heartbeat of America, and if you're interested in sports, if you have Hoosier running through your veins, the Crossroads Pod with Aaron X is made for you. Powered by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Each and every week, the Crossroad Pod covers all of Indiana sports. The pride of the horseshoe of the Indianapolis Colts. The blue-collar, bold swagger of the Indiana Pacers. The relentless pursuit of the sixth banner for the Indiana Hoosiers. The swing of the hammer of the Purdue Boilermakers. The swoop of the Cardinals of Ball State. The summoning of the echoes of the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. The growl of the Bulldogs of Butler. The intensity of an Indiana fever. The chop of the Indianapolis Indians. At the Crossroads Pod, if it is Indiana, we've got you covered. More than cornfields. More than country back roads. The Crossroads of America. Join me, Aaron X, every week. It's nothing but net.
Are you a fan of Buffalo sports? Are you thinking of changing loyalties and becoming a Buffalo sports fan? Do you even know where Buffalo is on the map? Did you know Canada is closer to Buffalo than New York City? Welcome to the Buffalo Huddle, every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and 4 p.m. Pacific Coast Time on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I'm your host, Patty Bax. This is a podcast designed for you, the passionate sports fan. I know you love your sports. Who doesn't? I cover Buffalo sports and so much more by bringing in the human elements. I call it Buffalo Sports with a Twist. Join me as we take a journey into the world of Buffalo sports. I guarantee you'll fall in love with Buffalo just like I did. Each week we start with an inspiration, question of the day, a Buffalo fun fact, and our weekly challenge to you, the listener. Come huddle up with me every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and 4 p.m. Pacific Coast Time for the Buffalo Huddle with Patty Bax on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. As we say in Buffalo, go Bills!
Back with segment number 2 of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. Definitely check out all of our amazing shows, such as Let's Whine About DMV Sports, which I think comes back tonight, the Crossroads Pod with Aaron X, and the Buffalo Huddle with Patty Bax. Also gotta give a shout out to Larry B, as I think the Sports Couple Perspective with he and Cecilia B comes on tonight. We'll see what happens, but we shall see. Anyway, segment number 2 is here, as right now, let us get on into some NASCAR action, as I don't know too much about NASCAR, but I do know we have another race coming on, as we have NASCAR at Fontana. So for NASCAR at Fontana, it is basically going to be happening in San Bernardino, as it's another race happening in San Bernardino and in Southern California. It's the second race, as we had the Busch Clash in the Coliseum, as your starting lineup or your top 10 happening, or your starting lineup. So first is going to be Christopher Bell. Second is Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Third, Joey Logano. Fourth, Alex Bowman. Fifth, Chris Buescher. Sixth, AJ Allmendinger. 7th, Daniel Suarez. 8th, Ross Chastain. 9th, Ryan Blaney. And 10th, Kevin Harvick. Then some other notable names include Denny Hamlin, Martin Truex Jr., who actually won the Busch Clash. The Kyle Larson, Brad Keselowski, Bubba Wallace, Alec Almirola, Noah Gragson, Kyle Busch, Ty Gibbs, Bubba Wallace, Austin Dillon, Ryan Preece, BJ McLeod, Chase Briscoe, William Byron, Chase Elliott, Eric Jones, Ty Dillon, and Tyler Reddick. And Larry B brings this up big time. He says, I hope it doesn't freaking rain on Sunday. So qualifications are on Saturday, and if it doesn't get rain tomorrow, which is Saturday, then if it does rain on Saturday, then they'll go straight to the race on Sunday. But if it doesn't rain, then they'll have qualifications tomorrow, which I hope it doesn't rain on Saturday. I hope it doesn't rain tomorrow. Please, for the love of all that is holy, do not rain. Please, Mother Nature. And Larry B says that he and Cecilia will be there. Well, that's awesome. And Larry B and Cecilia just have won the Big W award for being there. So congratulations to Larry B and Cecilia for being there, and they just got the Big W award for being at this sporting event, which I think is awesome. So for my pick for winning this for winning the NASCAR at Fontana event, I'm gonna pick, and this is going to sound like the biggest wild card. I'm picking Kevin Harvick to win. Now, I have been known for picking wild cards, but it's like I'm a wild card myself. I'm not the biggest NASCAR expert, and honestly, I'm not. But I was close. I think I picked whoever got third at the Busch Clash was whoever I picked to win the Busch Clash actually got third, and I was rather surprised. And I'm not the biggest. I'm not the biggest NASCAR expert. That is my colleagues, Daryl Kinsey Jr., Christopher Lehman, and Michael Ward, which you can catch every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific Time on the Extra Mile. So, anyway, but my pick is Kevin Harvick to win the NASCAR at Fontana race, and I think that would be quite something if I were to actually nail this. But if I will eat my crow if I am wrong about this, but but that's my pick. Kevin Harvick is my pick, and we'll see what happens. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but if I'm right, cool. I will gladly accept my flowers. Alright, but that is that. It's actually going to be the last NASCAR race in Southern California, which kind of bums me out, but it's all good. So, it is what it is. I mean, I'm glad NASCAR is growing the sport of racing in Southern California, which I think is cool. I think, in my opinion, I want to say NASCAR is more like in the Midwest. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's more along the lines of like Midwest or East Coast. I could be wrong, and if I am wrong, correct me. But just my opinion. Again, I'm not the biggest racing fan, or I'm not the biggest racing expert, but if I'm wrong, just please let me know. Anyway, that's that. I just want to discuss a little NASCAR just because that event is happening in Southern California. So just want to throw that out there. Anyway, that is the sport, and that is happening this weekend. And if you are going to attend, definitely let me know. And definitely say hello to Larry B. Alright, if you are going to be there. Alright, so have fun at that event, Larry. So anyway, jumping on over to the NBA action. So we'll start off with the Lakers. So last night the Lakers actually made me happy, and they defeated the Golden State Warriors without Steph Curry. 124-111. So it was a good win for the Lakers. They did lose D'Angelo Russell due to an ankle injury, which made me sad face, that spoiled the night, but it's all good. It was actually the first game back from the All-Star break, which I'm not going to get into the All-Star game just because I don't care about the All-Star. I would say I don't care about the All-Star game. It's just that it's not as fun as it used to be. Like, I used to always look forward to it, and I would always used to love playing the All-Star game on NBA Live, back when I would have a lot of time on my hands, when the PS2 was a thing. But then my PS2 basically crapped out, and I haven't even bothered to basically try to get another gaming console, but I digress. So the Lakers on Sunday are back in action when they play the Dallas Mavericks in Dallas. And then on Tuesday, the Lakers head down to the Bluff City to take on the Memphis Grizzlies. And then they start up the month of March when they take on the Oklahoma City Thunder right after they play the Grizzlies. And then next Friday, they head back to the Crypto.com Arena to take on the Minnesota Timberwolves. And then I guess I should mention that next Sunday, the Lakers play the Golden State Warriors. And I imagine Steph Curry is probably going to be back again. Sorry. But I imagine we'll see Steph Curry returning for the Golden State Warriors. But overall, I hope the Lakers can make some sort of push for the playoffs. If they can, awesome. But if they can't, c'est la vie. But overall, this is I did see something on Twitter. I saw that someone compare the Lakers' dire situation from when the Lakers were 25-29, and they had all sorts of drama when Kobe was on the Lakers back in 2013, and that everyone was projecting them to miss the playoffs, and then they made the playoffs as the 7th seed, and then they got bounced in the first round by the San Antonio Spurs, which was the infamous game where Kobe tore his Achilles, and he made 2 free throws, and the Lakers won that game against the Golden State Warriors, which that was also the game where pretty much Dwight Howard pretty much was ran out of town, or not that game, but that was pretty much the season that Dwight was pretty much ran out of town. But anyway, enough about the Lakers. So jumping on over to the Clippers, they return to action as they host the Sacramento Kings tonight at 7:30 p.m. Then on Sunday, they play on national television as they head down to the Rocky Mountains to take on the Denver Nuggets. Then on Tuesday, they head back home to take on the Minnesota Timberwolves on national television, which I think is rather interesting. They've got back-to-back national TV games. And then Thursday, they've got another national televised game. And then on next Friday, they head down to Sacktown to take on the Sacramento Kings. And then next Sunday, the 5th, they play the Memphis Grizzlies at home on national TV. And then I guess it's worth noting on the 8th, they play the Toronto Raptors on national TV. So the Clippers have a lot of nationally televised games starting off the second half of their season. Like, I hope the Clippers were expecting this, but they are rather entertaining. I mean, with all the success that they've had, with them being the 4 seed, it's rather impressive. I mean, one thing I will give them credit for is that they have been healthy for the most part this season. They've been dinged up quite a bit this season, but I will also say this: they've been healthy. They've kept their stars healthy, like Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, and they have traded a few key assets like Reggie Jackson, which is a bummer. But hey, they have some other reinforcements on the way. One person they did just recently sign was Russell Westbrook, which I'm surprised he's actually going to the Clippers. Now, most people are saying that this is going to be... Some people are actually mixed feelings about this. Some of the Clippers teammates, or some of the Clippers players, think that Ty Lue can revive Russell Westbrook's career. Some are saying that this is the worst thing that could happen, that Russell Westbrook is going to be the demise for the Los Angeles Clippers. I basically am going to say that this is going to be an experiment for the Clippers. Just like when the Lakers signed Russell Westbrook or traded for Russell Westbrook, this is going to be the biggest experiment for the Los Angeles Clippers. Now, obviously, I think Russell Westbrook is going to have to embrace coming off the bench, and he's just going to have to cut down on his turnovers. He can't just be He can't just think that he's Mr. Hot shot again, because he's not in his superstar days back when he was with the Oklahoma City Thunder. But he does get to reunite with Paul George back when he was with the Oklahoma City Thunder. That being said, however, he's just going to have to follow the system, and if Ty Lue wants him coming off the bench, then he's going to have to come off the bench. No questions. But we'll see what happens with Russell Westbrook. I think it's going to be quite interesting to see what happens with Russell Westbrook. If the experiment works, then honestly it works. But if it doesn't work, then sorry, Clippers. But honestly, for those saying that he's going to be that Russell Westbrook makes the Clippers a championship contender, pump the brakes. One player does not make a team a contender. It just doesn't. I'm sorry, but it's just the truth. Especially not Russell Westbrook. Again, it's just going to be an experiment. Like, please don't say Russell Westbrook is going to make the Clippers a title contender, just because the Clippers still have to go through the likes of Denver, an improved Sacramento, the Suns, who are improved, and then who are they going to beat coming out of the East? The Celtics? The Bucks? I'm just saying, and the Clippers, knowing them when they get to the playoffs, I think they can get out of the first round, but when it comes to round 2, can they really get past that number 1 seed? Can they really get past the Nuggets, who, I hate to bring back the bubble, but the Nuggets that rallied from a 3-1 deficit? Can they really get past the Suns, who broke their hearts the year after? I'm just saying, but we'll see what happens. Time will tell. All right, so that's that for the Clippers. Oh, I forgot to mention. Basically update how the Clippers and Lakers are doing in their standings. Though I think we all know how the Clippers are doing. The Clippers are still 4th in the Western Conference. They are still 9 games back of the Nuggets. I mean, personally, it would be cool to see the Denver Nuggets win the championship this year, but this isn't the Denver Sports Show. This is the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. So don't get too excited for me saying that, Denver fans. And then the Lakers are still 2.5 games back of the final play-in spot. So Lakers still have a lot of ground to make up. But the Lakers are only 5.5 games back of the Clippers, and they're only 6.5 back of the Sacramento Kings. Or they're only 6 games back of the Kings, considering how tight the West is. But we'll see. We'll see. All right, now that's that for the Lakers and the Clippers. So unfortunately for MLS, this season kicks off this week. But for the Galaxy and for LAFC, their game, which is supposed to be played at the Rose Bowl, is postponed because of the rain. I am so sad. I was so looking forward to seeing El Trafico being played at the Rose Bowl. But now it's going to have to be pushed back a week, or whenever it wants to be played. Man, this was so frustrating. And it's not just El Trafico that is just being pushed back. It's a rematch of the MLS Western Conference semifinals. Like, my God, this is so frustrating. And, oh, dude, like, this is heartbreaking, man. All right, well, I guess we're going to have to wait to see when LAFC and, what's their face, LAFC and the Galaxy face one. We'll have to wait and see when the Galaxy and LAFC face one another. So LAFC is back in action on the 4th of March when they play Portland at home. As for the Galaxy, they are back in action on the 4th as well when they head down to Big D, or Dallas, to take on Dallas FC. So we'll see what happens when both those teams are back in action. But that's just sucky, man. I was looking forward to El Trafico at the Rose Bowl, but soon, Galaxy and LAFC fans, I wonder when we'll see LAFC unveil their banner, if they haven't unveiled it already. Anyway, over to the NHL. So the Kings, well, they have kind of hit a rough patch, as ever since they beat the Anaheim Ducks last week, and they also they edged the Coyotes last Saturday. They've lost 2 in a row. They lost to the Minnesota Wild on Tuesday, and they lost to the New Jersey Devils yesterday, 3-4. So they've lost 2 in a row. As tonight, they continue their East Coast road trip as they take on the New York Islanders tonight. Sunday, they play the New York Rangers. Tuesday, they are at the Winnipeg Jets. And then Thursday, they return home to take on the Montreal Canadiens. And then Saturday, they welcome the St. Louis Blues, as the Kings are tied with Edmonton for second in the Pacific Division. About a week ago, we saw Seattle in second in the Pacific Division, but now we are seeing Edmonton in second in the Pacific Division. So Vegas is still holding strong in first place, 3 points ahead of the Kings in Edmonton. But don't count out Seattle or Calgary. But the Kings are still doing solid. As for the Ducks, they actually won yesterday. They beat the Washington Capitals yesterday 4-2. But on Tuesday, they lost to the Tampa Bay Lightning 6-1. Monday, they lost to the Florida Panthers 4-3. And then, as I mentioned, the Ducks got thumped by the Kings last Friday 6-3, as if their season hasn't been atrocious enough already. So, Saturday, Ducks are back in action against the Carolina Hurricanes. And then Monday, the Ducks are back in action. They're back home to take on the Chicago Blackhawks in the Battle of the Bad. Then on Wednesday, the Ducks welcome the Washington Capitals to the Honda Center. Then on Friday, the Ducks welcome the Montreal Canadiens. And then that's pretty much that for their week matchups until the next episode of SoCal Supreme Sports Show. But that is pretty much that for the NHL. Oh, forgot one more thing. The how bad are the Anaheim Ducks? The Ducks are so bad, they're still the worst team in the Pacific Division. Sorry to say. And then in terms of the Western Conference, if it wants to load up, I'm just going to skip over it. The Ducks are so bad. They're just that bad. The Ducks are so bad. They're now the worst team in the Western Conference. They have overtaken the Chicago Blackhawks for being the worst team in the Western Conference. And then as for worst team in the league, they are now the second worst team in the league, as now, like I said, they've overtaken the Chicago Blackhawks for worst team in the Western Conference, and they're now the second worst team in the league, as they only have to compete with the Columbus Blue Jackets for that honor. So that's that for the NHL portion of the show, as those poor Anaheim Ducks, it's almost over, Duck fans. It's almost over. Alright, but that is that for the NHL portion of the show. I want to say we're pretty much nearing the end of the show, which means it's that time to give out the Dum Dum of the Week award. So the Dum Dum of the Week goes out to someone that does something really dumb in this world. No one is safe from this award. Anyone can get this award. Any organization, any person, any figure, anyone can get this award. No one is safe from this award. And I have two Dum Dum of the Week awards to give out. And the first one I have to give out is to me. It is the Dum Dum of the Week award in 3 acts. So, first act for me happened last week. So last week, and this was I think this was a minor mistake. I don't know if anyone picked up on this, but last week I forgot to mute my mic when it came to the outro of my show. And now, obviously, now this is not in my defense. I'm not going to make this as an excuse, but I've been battling some technical difficulties. I don't know why. Now, my headset mic sounds a lot clearer. There was some squiggly noise. There was some noise in the background, but now it's no longer there. So now I sound a lot more clearer, a little bit more louder, but I sound a little bit more clearer. But now there's no more squiggly noise in the background. But now I sound a lot more louder, and my mic now picks up a whole lot more. But overall, I forgot to mute my mic last week. Oh, and I picked up on some of the background noise. Now, obviously that was an accident, but it gets worse. So that's the first act of my Dum Dum of the Week from last week, or for this week. So, but it gets worse. So Monday, when I did set point, so I made an error in facts. So I was unaware of this, and this is kind of an error on my part. So, for those that don't know, I am the host of iSports Radio's volleyball show, Set Point, and I had a guest on my show, Miguel Monterola, the head coach of the Las Vegas Ramblers and the head coach of Elisa Niguel Boys Volleyball. And I said on a Set Point that the NBA was put on ESPN Plus for the NBA playoffs the entire weekend, but that is actually not true. The NBA Finals actually got put on ESPN 3. Yeah. Uh-oh. And the head honcho, Nick England, pretty much told me that. He was like, for what it's worth, the championship game got put on ESPN 3. So, now he wasn't rude about it. I was like, uh-oh. And I corrected myself, but I, of all people, should know that just because, A, I'm kind of the NBA insider, B, I was at the event, and C, I should know that I'm the volleyball guru around here, so oops. So, it gets even more worse. So, in addition to Monday's blunder of not knowing that fact accidentally, I mistitled my show. I thought Set Point was on episode 183, but instead, it's actually on episode 182. Now, it's no problem for iHeartRadio, for Spreaker, for Spotify, for SoundCloud, for any of those, because you could just change the title and then everything gets modified. But for YouTube, everything on Spreaker gets modified, and then once it's done, it goes straight. Everything on Spreaker goes to YouTube, and then it takes a screenshot of the Spreaker. It takes a screenshot of Spreaker, and then basically it takes a screenshot of the episode title. I put Set Point episode 183, when in reality it was actually 182. So, unfortunately, there's no way I could fix that unless I want to get extremely technical. So, because of my blunder for what I did in terms of messing up my show title by one episode, in terms of my number title, I kind of have to give myself Dum Dum of the Week. I know I'm being a little too harsh on myself, but I have to basically do this. I should know better than this, and I should have basically been more cautious of this. I should know this by now, and I have access to how many episodes of Set Point I know of. I've done, so I'm this week's Dum Dum of the Week based off of my 3 acts.
You are so dumb. You are really dumb. For real.
Yeah, I went almost 2 months without being Dum Dum of the Week, but unfortunately my streak ended at February 24th, 2023. But hey, it happens. But now we have the second Dum Dum of the Week, and oh boy. Oh my goodness. So this happened late on Wednesday, but then this panned out on Thursday. Oh my goodness. So in this world, we all have differences, especially on social media. But oh my goodness, I cannot believe the differences between some people. So, as you all know, I'm a Chargers fan, and I guess and to an extent, I'm also a Rams fan. And I could really care less about what happens to the other teams. But when I saw on Twitter, sorry about that, but I saw on Twitter, there were these 2 Niners fans who were bickering about who's going to be the starting QB1 for the Niners in week number 1. So, they're both my friends. I follow them both on Twitter, and I do know both of them. One was actually a former colleague of iSports Radio. The other person I met via a broadcaster's path with Mark Willard. Now, for those that know who Mark Willard is, he used to be on ESPN LA. Mark Willard is such a great guy, and he unfortunately, he is now doing ESPN, or he's now working in Northern California. And I use the word unfortunately just because he's working with Northern California. But he's doing great things, and I love Mark Willard. He's such a great guy, and I met him in person, and I met him over Zoom, and the dude's just all around solid. So he's just a great guy. But this person and this, so there's this one person, this one Niner fan who thinks that Brock Purdy is going to be starting in week number 1 for the Niners. And then there's my other friend who thinks that Trey Lance is going to be starting in week number 1 for the Niners. And then this whole bickering is just continuing on. It's like, and I'm just looking at this whole thing that's going on. It's like they're arguing, and then they're just throwing gifts at one another, and then I guess they like unfollowed one another, and then I don't know if it gets heated with one another, but and I understand there are differences with one another, but I will say this to the Brock Purdy supporter. Now, I understand Brock Purdy did a great job this season. Brock Purdy was outstanding, but we all gotta pump the brakes on one thing. First of all, I don't care about Brock Purdy. I don't care about the 49ers. I can give a crap about the 49ers and what's going to happen with them next season. But Brock Purdy, I did hear that Brock Purdy's surgery for his elbow did get postponed. And yet this man thinks that Brock Purdy is going to be starting in week number 1. Okay. There's a couple problems with this Brock Purdy supporters theory. While I do like his support for Brock Purdy, while I do like his moxie and his support for Brock Purdy, elbow surgery I think takes about 6 weeks to come, or not 6 weeks, 6 months to come back from. And there are speculations saying that he's not going to be back in time for week number 1. Meanwhile, Trey Lance has obviously been out since probably week 2, and he should be back by the time week 1 rolls around. Heck, he should be back by the time training camp rolls around. So I don't get what this guy is thinking, saying that Brock Purdy is going to be back in time for by the time when training camp rolls around. He's probably not going to be back in time before week 2. So I don't get what this man is thinking, saying that Brock Purdy is going to be the starter. I'm no Niners expert. I do not have a dog in this fight, but it's like, do you really think that Brock Purdy is going to be ready by the time training camp, let alone week 1 rolls around? I just found that arguing very laughable. Part of me actually just wants to continue to see the arguing happening still. It was so laughable. I just wanted to continue to go on more and more. I even jumped in and said, I even posted a popcorn eating emoji saying, me continuing to see you two argue but honestly, it's really silly that this Brock Purdy supporter... Now, he's had some ridiculous takes. He even one time said that he didn't know that LAFC won the MLS Cup and that he didn't even care. It's like, well, screw you, and you're probably not even a Quakes fan. He thinks he's funny, but he's not. So, for this dude who's been who supports Brock Purdy. Now, I get his support and his passion for Brock Purdy. I get it. It's cool. But I don't see any realistic way that Brock Purdy gets back in time for week 1. Because that arm of his that got hurt in that NFC Championship game, I just don't see how it gets back in time. Because that's a 6-month process. And if his surgery got pushed back, then I just don't see how he gets back fully healed in time for week number 1. So, to this Brock Purdy supporter, whose name I'm not going to give out, you're this week's Dum Dum of the Week award recipient number 2. And I'm sorry, but, dude, your hero worship for Brock Purdy is just so way out of bounds.
You're so dumb. You are really dumb. For real.
And that, my friends, is all she wrote. I love Twitter battles sometimes. I don't like being part of Twitter battles. This is why I don't take part of Twitter battles. but some of these Twitter battles, when it comes to other fan bases, just really make my day. As long as it's not like disrespectful or it doesn't go out of bounds. Like, I just love these Twitter battles. But on that note, that's going to do it for this week's episode of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that time for me to get on out of here, because I got to freshen up to get on out and catch some NCAA men's volleyball action in Southern California. You dig? Thank you everyone for supporting and tuning into the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. I really do appreciate everybody tuning in. If you listen live, I appreciate you. If you listen on the playback, I appreciate you. If you listen at work, I appreciate you. If you listen at any time, any place, anywhere, I appreciate you. Shout out to my man, the myth, the legend, Larry B, for popping in. He says, I support the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. I appreciate you, brother. Also, shout out to Patty Bax, who popped in and listened. I appreciate you. She was probably listening while she was working. I appreciate you popping in. For everyone here at iSports Radio, this is Teran Rodriguez signing off. Have yourselves an amazing weekend. Be smart this weekend. Please don't do anything stupid that's going to possibly get you on the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. I will see you Monday for Set Point. And again, I will be at the Brent Event Center at UC Irvine for UC Irvine UCLA, for those that want to say hello to me and maybe want my autograph. But until then, have yourself a great week. Stay dry, just because it is probably going to be raining this weekend. Stay safe, just because it is going to rain. And just remember, SoCal is for SoCal. Peace!